Okay, now we're back. Heidi ho. Heidi ho? What am I saying? No, you gotta pull the ripcord. Gotta go back with, you know what? Sometimes an intro doesn't work out. Most of the time that ends up getting cut, and usually in other situations in real life, or fantasy, board game, or otherwise, you need some kind of ripcord, or, as some would put it, a contingency. Today's spell is Contingency. Sixth level evocation. You can argue about that one. I already. Casting time of 10 minutes, range of self, components verbal somatic material, statuette of yourself carved from ivory and decorated with gems worth at least 1,500 gold pieces. Pricey. Duration 10 days. Another 10-day duration. Choose a spell of 5th level or lower that you can cast that has a casting time of 1 action, and that can target you. You cast that spell, called the Contingent spell, as part of casting Contingency, spending spell slots for both. But a spell that takes 2 spell slots. But the Contingent spell doesn't come into effect. Instead, it takes effect when a certain circumstance occurs. You describe that circumstance when you cast the 2 spells. For example, Contingency cast with water breathing might stipulate that water breathing comes into effect when you are engulfed in water or similar liquid. The Contingent spell takes effect immediately after the circumstance is met for the first time, whether or not you want it to, and then Contingency ends. The Contingent spell takes effect only on you, even if it can normally target others. You can use only 1 Contingency spell at a time. If you cast this spell again, the effect of another Contingency spell on you ends. Also, Contingency ends on you if its material component is ever not on your person. Well, that's a neat stipulation. So this is the backup, paranoid, ripcord, parachute spell. It's the, oh no, I'm about to be hit, or the preparation. It's in its name, it's Contingency. But you have the effects that it has to only target you. This can't be a group thing, this can't be an area denial thing, it can't be a, let's say, Hellish Rebuke if you get a sneak attacked. But no, it's only if it affects you. Though it can be a spell that affects normally other people. See, when I remembered this spell, I remembered it wrong. I thought it could only be spells that could target you. So that heavily limited the list. But the fact just means if it can target you, it does still have the stipulation that it can't target anything else. So you can't say, oh, well, I want Fireball to cast on me and some kind of detonation in case I go down. Technically, that affects more people than just you. Though, depending on, let's say, Slow. I know Slow is a weird one, but how about Haste? Nope, that's also weird. Let's take a spell like Bless. Because it can target other creatures, but also can target you, can you put that in Contingency and just have the other 2 people that Bless can affect just drop and still go through on affecting you just itself? But because it specifically targets with 3 targets and not just a single target at the beginning, does that not allow it to be in Contingency? That heavily I'd leave up to DM. It's a finicky spell. The fact that it has 2 spells technically in it when you cast it, you'd never cast this alone. It's always using another spell slot, which is quite interesting. It makes sense for Contingency because it's the spell that changes the trigger effect of whatever it is. But I don't think there's any other spell that has you casting 2 separate spell slots at the same time. Be interesting to see if there are other things like that. Likely homebrew or not, but I don't think anything WO to the TC. No, it's a very particular spell based upon what you put into it and the situation you're trying to prep for, because yeah, it can save your ass. That's its whole design. But it also has a stipulation that it triggers whether you want it to or not whenever the effect is just first met, which can be a boon, can be bad. If the effect happens, you don't need to do something else to trigger it, it's just gonna go and save your life. Like, let's say if you're falling once again and you have some kind of feather fall left within it. It has a 10-day duration, which is already quite long, though if the statue is never on you, or if it leaves your person, it's not that it's just off of you, it's if it's taken off of you. For those 10 days, you have to have this always on you. If it's taken off, spell ends. There goes your 5th level evocation. No, 6th level evocation. And the remainder, what other... It's not even just a 6th level spell going to waste, it's whatever the other spell slot was as well, or material components, possibly. It's particular, it's to set up as a backdrop or an emergency, because it'll only affect you and it has such a steep price. Luckily, it's not consumed. So once you have this item, you keep it, but it has a hefty price tag of 1,500 gold pieces. Just a backup item, and if it ever leaves your person, lost, I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. Namely because it highly depends the situation what spell you need or prepping for, and that's quite the variable. But some spells could be way more worth it, some could not. That could actually trigger, it could be taken off of you. But in those moments where it really does pay off, it would be a much higher rating. So it roughly is going to even out to 6 out of 10. Yeah.